Welcome back. This is Marc Rudov, branding advisor to CEOs and author of 3 books on branding for CEOs. You remember last time I talked about Kamala Harris inventing Islamophobia using propaganda? Well, I want to continue the lesson on propaganda. You might remember last time I put up the slide of Edward Bernays, the father of public relations and propaganda. In the upper left-hand corner of the slide, it's propaganda, the manufacture of consent. That's why I'm calling today's episode Propaganda, Manufactured Consent. That's what we have. Today is November 5th. Yesterday, probably 1 million people descended on Washington, D.C., our nation's capital, in a great display of Islamophobia. Oh, I'm sorry, it was Jew-hating. Everywhere you went, people were wearing keffiyehs, having these so-called Palestinian flags, even trying to scale the fence at the White House. You can't make this up. They were all talking about how much they hate Israel. They want to eliminate Israel.
For them, my friends.
How did they get there? Buses from all over America were organized and funded to bring people to Washington, D.C. Who do you think did that? This was not an organic protest. This was organized and funded. Who do you think was behind that? Well, one guess, George Soros. George Soros is the same guy who funded left-wing district attorneys in New York, Chicago, St. Louis, Los Angeles, San Francisco, Philadelphia, Baltimore, and other places, left-wing DAs who would let criminals back onto the streets. Why did he do this? Because he hates America and he wants to see it crumble. You see, he's smart enough to know that he can't knock down the wall. He just has to loosen the mortar so that the wall will fall down by itself. And it's done that. He's a self-hating Jew who actually helped the Nazis in Budapest when he was 14 years old. Identify the Jewish houses and help the Nazis raid those houses and confiscate all their materials. You don't believe me? He admitted this to Steve Croft of 60 Minutes, December 20th, 1998. Watch.
To understand the complexities and contradictions in his personality, you have to go back to the very beginning, to Budapest, where George Soros was born 68 years ago to parents who were wealthy, well-educated, and Jewish. When the Nazis occupied Budapest in 1944, George Soros' father was a successful lawyer. He lived on an island in the Danube and liked to commute to work in a rowboat. But knowing there were problems ahead for the Jews, he decided to split his family up. He bought them forged papers, and he bribed a government official to take 14-year-old George Soros in and swear that he was his Christian godson. But survival carried a heavy price tag. While hundreds of thousands of Hungarian Jews were being shipped off to the death camps, George Soros accompanied his phony godfather on his appointed rounds, confiscating property from the Jews. These are pictures from 1944 of what happened to George Soros' friends and neighbors. You're a Hungarian Jew who escaped the Holocaust by posing as a Christian.
Right.
And you watched lots of people get shipped off to the death camps.
Right. I was 14 years old. And I would say that that's when my character was made.
My understanding is that you went out with this protector of yours who swore that you were his adopted godson.
Yes, yes.
Went out, in fact, and helped in the confiscation of property from the Jews.
That's right. Yes.
I mean, that sounds like an experience that would send lots of people to the psychiatric couch for many, many years. Was it difficult?
Not at all. Not at all. Maybe as a child you don't see the connection, but it created no problem at all.
No feeling of guilt.
No. That if I weren't there, of course I wasn't doing it, but somebody else would be taking it away anyhow. In other words, whether I was there or not, I was only a spectator. The property was being taken away. So I had no role in taking away that property. So I had no sense of guilt.
Are you religious?
No.
Do you believe in God?
No. I don't feel guilty because I'm engaged in an amoral activity which is not meant to have anything to do with guilt.
It gets better. At the beginning of this month, just a few days ago, Iran was allowed to chair a meeting in Geneva of the United Nations Human Rights Council. That's how despicable this is. The United Nations hates Jews and hates Israel. There's an agency called UNRWA, the United Nations Works and Relief Agency. This organization actually teaches little kids in the Israeli region, in Gaza and in Judea and Samaria, otherwise known as the West Bank, to kill Jews, little kids.
اقرأ اليهود بيحكوا لنا هدول غدارين وبيحكوا لنا انه هدول بغدرونا هدول مش منيح اذا بطعن بدعس عليهم بيعلمونا انه الاقصى النا والنا يعني يعني النا فلسطين والاراضي كلها النا
نعمل حرب انه نفرجي اليهود انه احنا مش انه احنا مش شاطرين احنا قوايا كمان
بيعلمونا ان الصهيونية هم اعدائنا وهم اهم شيء لازم يسوي فيهم عملية
عن انهم بيعلمونا بالمدرسة انهم ارهابيين
عمل عمليات.
كيف يعني؟
الدعس عمليات الدعس عمليات الطعن والاشتباك المسلح في المخيمات.
ايش اكيد هدول العمليات ترفع الراس ولفلسطين. العمليات هاي تاعت الدعس والسكاكين هاي اشي بيرفع الراس لفلسطين.
اذا بدك بطلع بستشهد عادي.
في ناس بحبوا فلسطين بدهم يحاربوا وبضحوا بدمهم عشان فلسطين. انا بدي اهزمهم بالحرب. بدي اهزمهم.
انا ان شاء الله اساعد الشباب وان شاء الله اصير مقاوم بالمستقبل مع الدولة الإسلامية.
The United Nations is so despicable that Antonio Guterres, the Secretary General, railed against Israel in a General Assembly, and he actually accused Israel of causing Hamas to attack it and behead babies and rape women. You can't make this up, folks. Watch this.
It is important to also recognize the attacks by Hamas did not happen in a vacuum. The Palestinian people have been subjected to 56 years of suffocating occupation.
So all of these kids, whether they're little kids or kids in college, they're acting like robots and they're doing what they're told to do. They have no idea what they're talking about, but they're doing it. This is manufactured consent. This is propaganda. And as Joe Biden would say, it's working. Now, let's go back to Obama. Obama started all of this by kissing Iran's ass and enabling and enriching Iran with a nuclear program that exists to this day. Joe Biden picked up the baton and he expanded it and made it worse. This attack on Israel never would have happened had it not been for Barack Obama laying the foundation and then Joe Biden building bricks on top of that foundation. Listen to Obama at his foundation meeting the other day, starting out by saying, oh, he abhors all this violence, but then, of course, he blames Israel and gets applause from the audience.
And of course, over the last few weeks, we have watched a deadly struggle unfold in the Middle East, triggered by the horrific murder of more than 1,400 mostly civilian Israelis, many of them children, at the hands of Hamas, as well as the abduction of over 200 hostages. And then an Israeli response that has so far resulted in the displacement of well over 1 million people, the death of at least 9,000 Palestinian civilians, thousands of them also children, the cutoff of water, food, electricity to a captive population that risks creating an even greater humanitarian crisis. And all of this is taking place against the backdrop of decades of failure to achieve a durable peace for both Israelis and Palestinians, one that is based on genuine security for Israel, a recognition of its right to exist, and a peace that is based on an end of the occupation and the creation of a viable state and self-determination for the Palestinian people. Now, I will admit, it is impossible to be dispassionate in the face of this carnage. It is hard to feel hopeful. The images of families mourning, of bodies being pulled from rubble, force a moral reckoning on all of us. And the ensuing debate has roiled college campuses, divided friends and allies, laid bare generational divides, and set off a surge of anti-Semitism and anti-Muslim sentiment.
So the lesson here is, you dumb down the kids. In our schools, English is racist, math is racist, history is racist, everything's racist. So the kids come out of school knowing nothing. When you know nothing, you are easily radicalized. And you will march to the beat of the drum of the people organizing the propaganda. And that's exactly what's happening. It's manufactured consent. It's working. We are in real trouble. It's hard to be a corporation trying to do legitimate branding in this environment, because branding only works on people who are smart and educated, not stupid. But of course, there's pernicious branding, and that's propaganda. And that's working, and it only works on dumb people. It's working. It's a shame. It's awful. Israel has to win this war. It must defeat Hamas. And as I've said before in other videos, Israel must ignore the propaganda, the anti-Semitism, and just win on the battlefield. Destroy these people. It all started with Obama, and it's continued with Biden. Biden's calling for a pause, a ceasefire. No. Do you think that Hamas will cease fire for 1 second? No. If Israel does that, it's done. Ignore the propaganda. Don't be caught up in it. This is Marc Rudov at markrudov.com.